I read an article recently that described the youngest generation. It was a very depressing article. It said that they're basically into sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It got very graphic, very pointed about that the rate of sexual promiscuity and disease is going back up, the rate of addiction and such, the type of trash music they're listening to, and our opponents are turning out drilled, disciplined cadres with a suicidal desire to serve the will of their leadership. That article was published in Reader's Digest in 1940. Those were your grandfathers they were describing and your grandmothers. And my father and my mother. Greatest generation. 1940, people were looking at me, oh, you kids today, this Andrews Sisters crap, and you're all making out in the back seat of cars. Well, tell that to the Marines that went ashore in Tarawa, or the GIs who went in wave after wave on Omaha Beach. And that was not a war that they had started or anything else, but they sure as hell finished it. I am very, very optimistic about our youth, particularly from around here. Okay, I teach at Montreat. I gladly trust my life to the vast majority. There's a couple I wouldn't trust my life to. But no, if the occasion arises, they'll be there. And I've had more than one student go out and a lot of praying while they were in Afghanistan or Iraq or places unknown. I think if we hit a major crisis, American youth will rise. Hey, there were people who were real scumbags in 1942 and trying to hide and dodge a draft or profiteer or whatever, but the majority were there and they did their jobs. I think our kids today will do the same thing. Let me close with this story. Okay? I was researching a book about 6 years back on Pearl Harbor, and one of the great joys of my job is I get paid to go to Hawaii. And so I rented a beachfront B&B for 2 weeks. And the owner found out, oh, will you include my place in the book? I said, yes. So I blew the place up in the book. And she had copies of the book later. And she said, when guests, read page 322. This place gets blown up. People love to get themselves blown up in books for some reason. I went out to the Arizona, and I went to the Punch Bowl. And if you want a tough experience, go to the Punch Bowl on Memorial Day, when there's 27,000 flags. But what I want to tell you about was, I dropped a hint to a friend of mine who ran for president. I said, we're writing a book about Pearl Harbor. I have never actually been on a carrier out on Apes. So when a future presidential candidate calls somebody on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and this person on the Joint Chiefs of Staff calls the head of community, whatever, kissing the voter's butt office, whatever, I get a call from Norfolk an hour later saying, do you want to go out onto the TR, Carrier 71. And I was like, would I? And he gave me 2 options. I'm going to drag this story out for him because it's kind of funny. He said, if you come down here this weekend, we'll run you through the training, because you have to go through a training and certification to be able to go out in an F-18 and come back. What they do is they dunk you in the pool and everything else. I had just read an article not a month earlier stating, if you get the chance, don't. This is good writing. Okay, the author of that article described getting flown out to the carrier, and 3 days later he gets launched off, which I'll tell you as a pilot was really cool. But that F-18, he said he kept it together. That F-18 just goes blowing up to 25,000 feet, levels out, and the pilot said the dreaded thing, you want to see what this baby can do? And so the author then wrote, a minute later, the bananas came up. The guys were right. bananas coming up taste basically the same as they do going down. This is good writing, it gets better. He said about a minute later, the beef stew from last night came up. That was not so pleasant. Now here's the line that threw me. He said a minute later, the milk duds I ate in 5th grade came shooting out of my house. And then I fainted. And then he finished, he said a week later, his beautiful package arrived. And it said, there was a little note on it and such, you know, and it said it was a flight jacket. He opened it up, and they had given him his call signal. And the call signal was 2 bags. So I'm thinking, even though I'm a pilot and I love flying, I don't want milk duds shooting out of my nose. So I said, I'll take option B, which is get down there and they fly you out in a COD, which is a twin-engine transport plane. That was awesome. Got out there. I belong to the Trap and Cat Club. I'm up on deck, and I'm dragging this out a bit because it leads to a point. How many of you have ever been on a deck during carrier ops? You know what I mean. I wrote about it. I described it as a ballet on testosterone. I mean, they're all wearing different color-coded uniforms because the noise is so intense. You have a double layer of ear protection. Voice communication doesn't work at all. It's all hand signals. And yellow are the launch kit. They're the prima ballerinas. But I would never say that to their face. I mean, these are the guys that, you know, they're winding it up and they salute and then they're down like this and that F-18 just goes flaming off of that deck and it's up to, and there's a guy in the back seat going, oh crap, I should have read the article because I'm going to hurl. But I watched this for 3 days. It took me a day to realize that the cool white outfit they had me in, which was a survival, you know, sir, if you are blowing off deck, there will be, you know, you'll have the, you know, the survival gear. And it was 3 days before I realized white meant I was the village idiot. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. They actually had a toddler handle on the back of my jacket. I mean, I love military speak. When the petty officer saying, sir, if I am required to throw you down on the deck, please do not be insulted, sir, but it is to protect you from getting blown off of our ship. And sure as hell, at one point, I'm down on the, you know, what's going, this guy's lying on top of me as they're pivoting an F-18 around. I ate almost all my meals except one in enlisted dining area. And I kept asking the same questions. And one question I asked repeatedly was, is there anything really in particular that you worry about or spooks you being up there, particularly in night ops? I got the same answer from every last one. You know what they're most afraid of? Of screwing up and somebody else gets hurt. They couldn't live with that. In fact, if that happens, even if it's one of these accidents that person usually is transferred off because it's where did I screw up? While I was on that carrier, they showed me the video. I was off the deck only about a half hour and one of the arresting cables snapped. And that thing, as you know, the incredible tension on it, that thing goes whipping across the deck. It will cut you in half. My God, they showed me the video of this young girl, saw it, there was somebody else doing something else, and she just did a running leap and tackled this guy and took him down as that cable went flying over both of them. He would have been killed. My point in closing on that is, after 3 days, as I'm getting set to leave that carrier, and that's cool. How many of you have been catapulted? Is it not awesome? Were you hurling behind an F-18 or were you in a COD?
I was in COD.
Okay. Was it not cool? At last time, the chief petty, he said, sir, you know, this means 10 seconds. He said something about puckering something. And I'm going, this is just so bloody awesome. You go from 0 to 100, what, 150 in 2 seconds? Yeah. I'm leaving, and the XO, we talked for a minute, and then the XO said to me, Dr. Forstchen, I want you to realize something before you leave. And I was like, sir? And he said, well, You get home to your family tonight, whether you're alive or dead, is dependent upon my deck crew. Their average age is 20. Yeah. I got a lump in my throat. I choked up. I choke up every time I think of it. Because I ask my college kids every semester, they're your age. They're out there protecting your butts so you can sit in this room. And I want you to think about that every day. We're going to say a prayer every day. But they're Americans. I said, sir, I know I will be safely home with my daughter tonight because you and your team are protecting me and my daughter, and I thank you. That's my answer. We got kids out there right now who are standing up to it. And we owe them all. And I know we're not a sectarian group, but I'm just asking for a moment. Let's just take a moment to pray for them, and then I'm going to call quits. So if you join me in a quick prayer for our military. Heavenly Creator, we thank you for our country, our freedom, for the sacrifice of all those who gave the last full measure across over 200 years to give us what we have today. And we ask for that blessing and protection over those young men and women who tonight are placing their lives on the line to ensure that America remains forever free. And we thank you, dear Lord, for the blessings of this country. Amen.